don't think so. All right. So just to clarify, Supervisor Hines, were you talking about moving our regular meetings to afternoon start times?
Yes, I was talking about revising our regular meeting schedules to potentially a different day, definitely a different time, and also adding in study sessions if that's the will of the board.
Okay. Any other input as far as this goes? Go ahead, Supervisor Allen.
Well, as far as study sessions go, love the idea. I think it would be great to have a space where we can take some of the presentations that are currently off on the existing agenda format, move them to the study session so that we have an opportunity to have more engaging, in-depth conversations around the climate plan, around the work around homelessness. Also as being a space where some of the more substantive policy proposals that we have before us that we put on the agenda could go to study session first, so that, again, we've got a space to have a dialogue around it, unearth questions, and dig a little bit deeper before we're asked to vote on things. I think it'd be great because of the trying to have that be a space that there's a deeper amount of conversation, deliberation, that those happen in evenings. I don't have a strong preference as to what day, but I think it makes sense to move those to an evening so that we are creating space for folks in the public to come. Weigh in.
So your suggestion would be, Supervisor Allen, to keep regular meetings at their current time and date, but if we adopted study sessions for that to be an afternoon event? Okay. Supervisor Cano.
Definitely in favor of study sessions. Timing, I'm not sure what our preference would be, so I think I would just want to see a plan from administration on what that could look like, what kind of costs would be associated with the changes. Perhaps it's just that I've been at the county for 15 plus years in my head, and I feel like I do like the 9 a.m. personally for the regular meetings. So it's going to take a lot for me to deviate from that, but I'm open to it if we, if it works, or perhaps we tier it so that one meeting is the current structure and the other meeting is perhaps more conducive to working people. But it truly is one of those things where I'm open to ideas and feedback. And of course, the effort always being, what can we do to increase our commitment to transparency and to doing the people's business at a time that makes sense for them?
And so I'm wondering, Administrator Lesher, in terms of staff commitment, if we were to go to either two afternoon meetings, as Supervisor Hines is talking about, or one morning meeting, one afternoon meeting, as has been suggested here, and then afternoon study session, what's the staff impact in terms of how people would arrange their hours? I realize that we're talking about people who are both salaried and hourly when we're talking about attendance at board meetings.
Sure, but it would vary by department, and we can come back and give you that information because I think thank you. It would vary by department. For most of us, it doesn't matter. We can come. We will happily attend a board meeting at any time. I think with the clerk's shop, I think we need to understand the impact on her staff, and we can chat with IT, communications, and just from the different partners. I think for some of our folks, it's just realigning work schedules and seeing people can come and serve. If you're, if you're talking about keeping the 2 meetings and maybe adding the study session as a once-a-month option in the evening, what we can do is get back with you and see what it would take to ramp up into these. Maybe starting with 1 study session is an easier way to get going, see how it works, see what the staff impact is, and expand. But we're happy. I'll work with the clerk and our other departments and give you a full idea of that. But we can accommodate whatever you all determine is the best schedule.
Please.
I've also noticed that our board packets are large because we're not placing items on consent. And so I fully support the administrator doing everything in her power to put things on consent. And I recognize there's been a pattern sometimes of pulling items from consent, and that perhaps has led to, a very comprehensive agenda. But it's my opinion that if there are board policies or thresholds, contracts that truly need to be on the regular agenda, I get that, but I would be more than happy to greenlight a criteria for what would be on consent if it's board policy that's needed. If it's a procurement contract over $1 million, perhaps we should be looking at it. Anything below that, perhaps not, right? I mean, but just some word vomit.
Mm-hmm.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Scott, members of the board. I think historically what we looked at was simply contracts went on the consent agenda, but, and I know that the clerk can speak to this much more, there was no threshold. So just any contract really was on the consent, or most of them, and that became a concern because when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts that might be controversial, so it became, rather than all in or all out, we're working through that.
Chair Scott, board members, we used to put all contracts, awards, and grants on the consent calendar. And a few years ago, I believe there was board discussion to move those onto the regular agenda, and that's what we did.
And I recall that conversation, Ms. Manriquez and Ms. Lesher and my colleagues, because that was right around the time, Supervisor Hines, that we were taking office. And I think the reason that happened is because there were so many requests to pull items off of the consent agenda. But I also know that just in the brief time that I've been your chair, that I look for a lot of opportunities to bundle non-controversial items, and I'm wondering if a lot of those items wouldn't logically be on a consent agenda, because if we're willing to consider them in a bundle, then they're obviously not too controversial. So I'm wondering if there's not a way to go back to Supervisor Cano's original point to look at how we could have more items on consent while considering board member desire and public desire to consider substantial items individually. There's got to be a fine line. Go ahead, Supervisor. Ms. Supervisor.
So I'm just laughing at myself because I would criticize a lot of people who spend time in Phoenix, and their first statement would be, when I was at the legislature. When I was at the legislature, we had the ability to pull items out on consent a few days before they hit the floor. And so perhaps a reform that we can make, if there's consensus on the board, is like the Monday prior to the meeting by noon or something, you request the items that you want to pull. That way it helps us know what to expect and add some accountability on us, right? I don't want to go back to those painful days of not 40, item number 47, but yes, to 48. And it becomes, so we could streamline this by putting the emphasis on us to request when items should be pulled.
And that be done sometime before the actual meeting date.
Yes.
Okay.
And you alert the way we did it is you alert the clerk, and you everybody gets notice of the item that is going to be pulled from consent. Okay.
It does. I think Supervisor Allen had her hand up, and then I'll go to Supervisor Hines.
So a related, I think, suggestion that I would ask the administrator to kind of come back to a proposal for is to formalize the agenda committee so that there's a body and it, respecting open meeting law, right, that we have representation around the table from all of our offices as the agenda gets set. And that could be a time and space in which offices can say, we don't want that on consent, that's not going to fly, we should put that on the main agenda. It would also give us a sense, too, and this is something that I have wanted to have a better grasp of, is just the cadence of meetings, what is coming up, so that we can be thinking a little bit more, we're not scurrying, right, as agendas come out and realizing what's on it and what's not on it, just so we can have the long view as well as a little bit more engagement around the short view of what is specifically on the agenda at that time and weigh in. So the idea would be that there is office representation, all five offices represented on the committee, and folks are bringing to the table agenda items from each of our offices. And there's a conversation about what makes sense to put on the next agenda, or maybe it makes more sense to bundle it with something else in the agenda after that. But there's just a conversation around it, and we've got the long-term view.
And I would echo that. A lot of the reason I think that it was under Chair Grijalva, I believe, when we made the change, because we had, and much of it was from the consent, in terms of pulling from consent, it was District 4's interest in just voting no on something, not necessarily even talking about it. So, like, if as Supervisor Allen said, if we have, like, actually both of those plans work. Well, yeah, we can do all of it, but just make sure that every district office has someone around the table during the agenda setting meeting say, yeah, that should be fine, so that we don't end up with 20 things being pulled from consent. That should help a lot. And in terms of other things, like, especially if we're not going to move the start time to 4 or 5 p.m., which I think we really, really should do for our people, but then we need to start at 8 or something. We need to there's got to be a way that we can.
Sorry.
You okay?
So, just don't mean to interrupt.
Okay. I mean, I do not like mornings, but I mean, I'm awake, I'm doing stuff with my patients in the hospital, it's fine. So, like, if we can maybe start earlier, and also let's prioritize the people that have to show up for hearings, even those annoying firework permits and whatever, liquor licenses, rezoning hearings, all that stuff should be first. And I mean, okay, maybe the pledge, but everything else, the dogs are cute, but come on. So, like, people, we don't need the dog thing. Okay, we can keep the dogs, but, like, not cats. So, like, it just needs to make more sense. And we need to be responding to the people that we work for. Like, we have 200,000+ bosses, and the vast majority of them cannot very easily or consistently come and talk to us when we meet. And that just seems so fundamentally unfair to them. So, I know I started out about me, which is not probably what I should have said, but, like, I'm trying to also speak on behalf of most county residents who really truly cannot get to 9 o'clock meetings and wait 4.5 hours to find out if they can open their, like, bottle shop or whatever. It just seems like we could redo this. And what I'm hearing is, since the majority of folks are salaried, it's not so much a massive expense to shift the time. It just means the next day there's going to be some folks coming in late just to make sure to offset things. That's fine. But yeah, so however we do this, like, if that's at the very least, if we don't move this to like a 4 or 5 p.m. start, which by the way would encourage us not to be going for 7 hours, I would think. Like, make sure these hearings are first, just so they don't have to sit around forever.
And I generally do, I'll check with people in the audience, and if they're here for the hearing, or sometimes they talk with staff in the back that they're here for something, and we do try and make those adjustments. So I'm hearing that we'd like a recommendation on several options. I'm definitely hearing that if we work in study sessions, that we want that to be in the afternoon. I'm definitely hearing that. But I'm also hearing that looking at either a continuation of the morning meetings or a hybrid approach where you have one morning meeting, one afternoon meeting, is something to look at. And if we can't do that, looking at an earlier start, although I heard an uncomfortable cough about that. But the other thing, there's some other things where we need some recommendations and more opportunities for structured discussion. One would be the format or structure for study sessions. I agree with Supervisor Allen that some of our more substantive presentations, especially where we want to have dialogue between board members and involving staff members as well, should be at a study session rather than in a regular meeting. But beyond that, I'm not sure what else we'd include in a study session. So maybe looking at the study session format that they use in the city, and Supervisor Kano worked in the city before he was appointed as a supervisor. Supervisor Allen has a family member who was a longtime city employee. They might be able to offer some input as far as that goes. What am I leaving out? Thank you. That was a question I had for Mr. Brown as our parliamentarian and being cognizant of open meeting law. I have no objections whatsoever. In fact, I think it would be helpful in terms of board consensus to having a broad-based agenda committee. I just want to know how we can do that while still being mindful of open meeting law considerations.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Scott. Board members, I think as long as our office is there to officiate and the conversation is process and not substance, I think we're okay.
Perfect.
I would be concerned if our office wasn't there. I mean, the clerk is there, obviously, but someone was there to keep an eye on the discussion to make sure that we're not trending into OML violation territory.
Okay. And so is that something else that we could get a recommendation on? Supervisor Kano, I think you wanted to say something. I'm sorry, I thought I said.
I was just mentioning the consent reforms as well.
Thank you.
Pulling the items in advance.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that was another. Absolutely.
And Chair Scott, we've also talked about proclamations.
Yeah.
I love proclamations. They bring the community to our meeting space. Mm-hmm. So I'm reluctant to limit them. Perhaps we start to have an understanding that, like, we got one speaker, right, per proclamation instead of having 3, 4, 5. That's the board discussion. It's whatever we want. Ways to also continue to, because that's the only structure right now with the clerk and the chair signing these proclamations too. I just wonder, what kind of capacity, if we were to create the same proclamation signed by the individual supervisors instead of having to put it on an agenda and come to us, right? Is there capacity for that? And I know there's a cost to all of it, but I would, since that is my only option right now, other than printing a certificate of recognition, I just feel like I would also be able to be more strategic about whether it's a board proclamation or a District 5 proclamation, if that makes sense. So, just
Thank you. Please. Those couldn't those all be on consent? Right? I mean, but then it's the presentation part that you're talking about, right? Okay.
Well, I'm kind of talking presentation, Chair Scott, and because that eats into our meeting time, but I'm also just talking about when those proclamations are on the agenda because they've been requested by an entity, right? And so if there's an option B for us to just do that as an individual district office and still have the formality and the seal, I just think we could probably do it right now. We probably just haven't asked, right? And it would be a change in precedent. So,
just to clarify, so we could then take the proclamation to the organizations and present it at their own venue rather than needing to have folks come to our meeting and formalize it there.
sometimes they come to us. And the reason a lot of those are introduced by District 1 is because they're coming to us as the board, and we're introducing it as the chair, and they do want it presented at a public meeting.
And then Chair, staff, board members, just to keep in mind, so proclamations are on the agenda. They're approved by the board, and per the board's rules and regulations, the chair signs all documents that are approved and adopted by the board. That's why the presiding chair, signs those proclamations.
So, but what I'm hearing Supervisor Cano say is if it's something that comes from an individual district, doesn't come to the county, but it comes to an individual district, you're wondering if there's a way that can be handled by the individual supervisor?
Yes, Chair Scott. It is not meant to replace the proclamation process and what we have here. It's just an added tool. Because I think if we know we have that option, perhaps we wouldn't place something on the agenda and we do it on our own.
Okay.
And not have it take up 5 or 6 minutes at a board meeting. But I think we're getting in the weeds now that night. Yeah.
All right.
This is why our meetings are 7 hours.
If I could set one piece to it, and I was thinking about this in terms of the scheduling and when, what time we start and whether it's the morning or the evening. I mean, there's also just the other layer that a lot of our constituents have to drive 2.5 hours just to get to the board meeting, whether that starts at 9 a.m. or whether it ends at 8 p.m., right? The travel time is also significant. I actually like the idea of being able to take a proclamation to Arivaca, to Amado, to Ajo, to 3 Points, where the community is, and actually being able to present and recognize fully folks there where they are when they can gather, because getting folks to Tucson and our chambers at any time is going to be challenging. So.
Fair points, definitely, especially representing a district the size of a New England state as you do.
Okay, exactly.
Anything else with regard to board meeting schedule and agenda format? We're kind of discussing those two items together. There was something you wanted to say, Ms. Mendriquez? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Supervisor Hines.
Well, while the staff is doing scenarios, I think I kind of like the option of people who need a hearing for some reason being able to say, do you want a morning or an afternoon hearing? But what I would really prefer is just afternoon hearing. So could you do, in case that sort of going back and forth thing just makes our heads explode, could you do the keep it in the morning, all in the afternoon, as well as the hybrid option, and kind of look at all three of those? I guess you don't have to look at the first one because we're already doing it, but yeah, that'd be great.
So would this come back, this would then come back to the board as an agenda item or items that we then need to determine? And so we had the discussion and the brainstorming here, but once we actually make decisions, that would be at a board meeting, and then Supervisor Christie, who isn't able to be with us today, is able to weigh in on those as well. Okay. All right.
Good. Chair, do you have any renovations planned for the hearing room? Maybe we can talk about it in your next update, but I'm just curious. I think that my understanding is the lanyards in front of us are a security tool, and I don't think that they feel prohibitive from people.
I understand what you're talking about, the barriers that are up.
Right.
Okay.
And so I just wondered, what is our plan for that room? I don't think it's received a reset many years.
I'm wondering thank you, Supervisor Cano. I'm wondering if we could have a consultation, Ms. Lesher, in between your office, the clerk's office, and Mr. Stuckey, because my understanding is that some of those measures that you were just referring to, Supervisor Cano, are at the recommendation of Mr. Stuckey and his team that oversee security.
Yeah, and to be clear, we've got to all be very, Chair Scott, and we've got to protect ourselves, and I recognize that, but there are other ways to make things look nicer.
Okay. No, point taken. And I think if the three offices, the administrator, the clerk, and the security team could have that discussion and make either recommendations to the board or changes that they want to suggest themselves.
And one other thing.
Go ahead, please.
So, lighting is important. This sounds kind of trivial, but I think better, more adequate multi-angle front lighting for the people presenting, because especially for those who are tuning in they look very dark and ominous and hard to see. And I just think so we can revise the lighting a little bit. No, I don't mean so much that's hitting the supervisors, but the folks who are coming up and stepping
up. During people who have materials during call to the public?
Also that, but just the persons at that podium, sometimes their faces, it's very dark. So they need, we have lights on us, right? I think we do anyway. We should. If we don't, we should. But but they actually, there needs to be light kind of that way as well toward them, so that we can actually see them, so people remotely can see them, and so that they don't look scary. So, because they look very dark, and it's kind of hard to tell.
So you're talking about what you've been hearing from people who are watching the meetings in terms of how those...
I'm watching them myself, right.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a very minor tweak, but since we're talking about the boardroom, yeah.
No, thank you very much. Anything else under those first two items? Nope. All right. Well, then I think we're going to turn it over to you, Ms. Lesher, for item number 3, downtown space plan and board offices. All right.
We'll do this.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, Jan. Appreciate this opportunity to listen in and participate today. So wanted to talk about space planning, particularly in the downtown area. And so as you've been going through your discussion today, identifying priorities, I think many of the ones that you've touched on relate to this topic of our downtown space and how we utilize it and occupy it. So budget was made mention of, and so there's an operating cost to the buildings that we occupy. Many of them are aged buildings in the downtown area. We've got 14 buildings that we either own or we lease and occupy in the downtown area. So those older buildings have deferred maintenance needs, and that's costly. So budget is definitely an aspect related to this topic. You touched on climate. Climate, absolutely, as we're occupying buildings, we're running heating and cooling. We're doing it in buildings that have outdated window systems and ventilation and circulation systems. There's a cost to us to doing that. And so we're mindful of the opportunity here to maybe bring our costs down while reducing the consumption of energy in our buildings, both power and water in our building uses. And then employer retention was an item that you touched on and said is a priority of yours. And so you've been through these offices, you've seen the layout of them, you've seen the finishes in those offices. They're not modern, to put it lightly, and so we have an opportunity there. So our project design and construction team, along with our facilities management department, have been working on a concept that has been labeled the 3 R's. And if any of you know Steve Sullivan, the architect, I think many of you have worked with him. He's from Boston. He has an accent. He calls it the 3 plan. So this is what we're here to talk with you about this morning and get this afternoon and get some direction back from you. So those 3 R's are really built around the idea of right-sizing the footprint that we occupy, and then refreshing the building interiors and the exteriors where necessary, and revitalizing the building. So the right sizing is looking at, can we make more efficient use of the square footage that we occupy? And in doing so, the team has preliminarily identified that over a period from 2025 to 2031, we could potentially move out of building space, 2 or 3 of the buildings in the downtown area that the county currently occupies. And so doing that would have the opportunity for us to market those and generate revenue if they were sold and put back into private use and generating tax revenue that can also come back into the coffers of Pima County. Benefits of it is the refresh, right? You're using the dollars that you're investing better rather than putting dollars into older buildings that have a need for building system replacement. So think about heating and cooling systems, elevator systems, the lighting infrastructure that's in the building, plumbing, electrical infrastructure. We would be investing in buildings that are newer buildings to go ahead and develop the footprint in a way that's more efficient so that we would have better circulation, better flow, bringing natural light into the building so that more individuals are able to, benefit from that. The model that we've used in 130 West Congress is a great example of that. Folks have moved back into that building. The model on that floor is taking the walled office spaces and moving them to the interior of the floor plate and then having your workstation layout around the exterior so that anyone who stands up can see out the window. That natural light comes in and filters throughout. So the idea is that we would develop a plan, a schedule for how we would move departments through a renovation process where we would vacate floors. There's a couple of vacant floors that are in the buildings that we occupy downtown. We would build out those vacant floors and then we move individuals back. So through a series of identified and sequenced moves, we would get through the redesign, redevelopment, and deployment of brand new spaces across all of the buildings that we would continue to occupy. There's an expense to that, obviously, and when we talk about budget, our estimate is about $2 to $3 million per floor to go ahead and do those renovations with, a time frame of usually a year for design and a year for construction. We can double up how many of those building floors that we do at a time. So, for example, in the capital improvement budget that you've approved for this current fiscal year, there are dollars programmed to build out the 10th and 11th floor at 130 West Congress. We have 2 floors in the Public Works building that are included in there for build out, and we have programmed dollars for a conference center on the first floor of 32 North Stone. So the building that you all are in, that vacant first floor, the idea is to meet the conferencing needs of the county departments that are in the downtown area. Potentially other departments could come in and use that, and we can make it available to the public for meetings and other public events if that was the desire of the board. So what we'd like to hear from you today is, does this sound like a program that you would like to see us advance and bring to you in more detail? So there's been some discussion about the 10th and the 11th floor amongst your chiefs of staff about the Board of Supervisors returning over and occupying the 11th floor and county administration coming in and occupying the 10th floor. So, hearing some feedback from you today would be helpful in defining what that plan overall looks like and putting some dollars to it in a time frame that we can share with you and say this was what it would look like in its entirety. So I'm happy to answer any questions or just listen to the conversation, however you'd like to proceed.
Board members, any questions or comments from Mr. DeBonis? Supervisor Allen, go ahead, please.
Are we, in terms of thinking about the renovations of buildings, are we looking at the ability to achieve any sort of LEED designation for the energy efficiency environmental design sort of standards? Are we able to hit any of those levels?
Yes, Supervisor Allen. So those are standards that we build to. Oftentimes we don't go through the process of certifying, to receive that designation, that certified LEED designation, but all of our projects are geared towards achieving those LEED standards at some level, right? There's various levels of LEED standards, but that's on the minds of our team as they design the space. We want them to operate as efficiently as possible, going to that point about we then pay for heating and cooling and other costs associated with operating the buildings.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Supervisor Connor.
Thank you, Chair Scott and Mr. DeBonis. I am looking forward to learning more about the plan. I feel like you are all headed in the right direction, looking at our assets in the downtown area and all of our inventory to figure out how we can reduce costs. I think that my only ask is that we really be strategic about who we're handing off those properties to, because I think there's an opportunity for us to really be good community stewards and perhaps look at what those renovations could look like for housing, for places of significant cultural history. There's lots of folks wanting to replicate what is in this beautiful courthouse here that we've created. So that's my only input. And I do agree that we need to look at all options. I don't think it's related, but it is downtown. With us going to a new building across the street, the library, and being at Wells Fargo, I think we've already talked about how we should really be looking for a retail opportunity as well, something to allow us to get some coffee or lunch beverages in that area, help boost the tax base a bit, and I think that's really exciting. I also believe that one thing that we could look at is providing a Pete's site, not that we run, but that we host essentially as a facility for our county employees, right, to make it a little bit easier and I think the library is a prime location for something like that. So I'm dreaming big with you, and I also have had very, very initial conversations with city leaders about what the old library can look like. I think it's too costly to any kind of renovation into it. It's part of the reason why we're going across the street. And so that entire parcel then, which is city-owned, becomes a discussion that I think we really ought to have about how we can work together. I dream of a Central Park-like environment that allows an outdoor venue space and allows us to have mixed-use housing and commercial, and I just think it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to bring more folks downtown, and obviously District 5 wants to be a part of those discussions. And there is, I think, a tentative green light from the folks I've talked to, and I can tell you who I've talked to about engaging in that offline. Excited about the board offices and us all being in the same space and being with the county administrator next door as well. That's my only input for now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor.
This is kind of on the last thing. I just realized that afternoon meetings on Tuesdays would conflict with the city council meetings largely. So then no, that wasn't me saying forget my idea. I'm just saying let's do it Wednesday. Please. Or Monday night's fine. And if we did it on Mondays, then we wouldn't have to do that stupid shift every time the August rolls around, right? We wouldn't have to bounce the meeting to Monday. And anyway, okay, sorry. That's it.
Thanks, Supervisor. Hey, question for you, Mr. DeBonis. You mentioned that this was a plan that would span between this year and 2031. Does that mean that it would take until 2031 for us to have those 3 buildings to potentially put back into the private sector and on the tax rolls?
So thank you, Supervisor Scott. The team is looking at how to phase this in.
Okay.
And so they have a preliminary plan on how the moves would unfold. And one of the objectives is to bring, as soon as possible, the ability to go ahead and make vacant buildings available to to market. And I appreciate Supervisor Kano, your comments about being mindful on it. And so any sale of county buildings would be brought in front of the Board of Supervisors. You'd receive a purchase sale agreement and you'd have input on that. And we can certainly talk about, as we're approaching the time frame when we think buildings will be available to sell, having some process for gathering up your input, or if it's public input that you desire, we can certainly, do that. But one of the objectives is to try and phase it in a way that brings vacant buildings available as soon as possible. It's going to be the latter portion of that window that I talked about, but we're still refining that.
Okay. And then in terms of the additional details, now that it sounds like you have interest and approval of the board, in terms of the additional details, when are we likely to get those?
Supervisor Scott, I'll work with the county administrator and with our team. I think you could expect within, the next couple of months, that we would have information available to you. And so the team has been anxious to go ahead and move, particularly on 10 and 11, because if the board and the county administration was not going to occupy that floor, we need to identify other users there. But we think that that's the best approach for that particular location. It frees up building space here. It frees up building space in 32 North Stone. That factors into the plan, so we can begin to get an architect consultant on board, start working with you and your respective teams to lay out a design so that piece can move forward. And then we're going to be doing design on 2 floors in the Public Works building and that conference center this current fiscal year. And then what we will do is work with the county administrator, work with finance, also to slate how we would fund the entirety of this plan. I think it's important that we say we're in for all of it, right? That we have some certainty that we know what it's going to cost. You all are comfortable with that and give us the green light to then move through the sequence of build out. And it will bring greater clarity, right? As we talk about space and moving individuals around, there's great interest by employees in where they ultimately would be located. And so to that extent, we can start fashioning a way to communicate with employees, have resources available. People can go out and look and see when their department slated for relocation, where that relocation will be. And then our team in project design and construction and facilities, they engage with departments around the design of the floor, so they would have involvement in that process. But to the extent that we can say, yes, this is a plan that has overall benefit, and this is the cost of doing it, and we're going to go forward with it, will enable us to do that in an efficient way.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair Scott. Just some very technical questions about 2 properties. So is it our intention where grants and finance used to be, is that on a for sale list soon? And then can you just provide a brief update on the parcel that is north of Tucson Electric Power? We own that one, right?
Yes, sir, Supervisor Kano. So 97 East Congress is where Grant was. So Grant's management finance was over there. That building will be one of the ones that we look to make available for sale. So in the interim phases of this project, we would be moving people from other spaces into that building so that we can build out floors, right? This project works most effectively if we can clear floors off, do complete renovation of a floor, and then move individuals in there. So the idea is that 97 East Congress would be used as the temporary home for departments that are currently occupying other space. But once that is clear, the cycle moves through to where that department or departments who occupy 97 East Congress go to their home, their final home, then that would be available for sale. The other one that's high on our list is 32 North Stone. I think I mixed up before. The conference center is in the first floor of 33 North Stone. I said 32 earlier. So where you are, that's the conference center. But 32 North Stone, if if Laura Conover was here, she would cheer because that building is one of the oldest in our inventory. Sam knows this.
First elevators, Sam.
That's right. So there is concern there. So 32 North Stone, 97 East Congress are two of the top priority buildings for us to divest from. 75 East Broadway, that vacant lot, as you're likely aware, is under a lease option with Rio Nuevo. Rio Nuevo did a request for proposals, and a proposer has been selected. That's OB Companies, who has a mixed-use development proposal for that site. They have been working through their concept development and their financial pro forma, so we expect that sometime in the next upcoming months that Rio Nuevo will get a presentation on that. Our team is working with Rio Nuevo and with OB Companies, and so before anything gets finalized on that, that would come back to the Board of Supervisors and say, here's the full content of the proposed use, and then you would also be asked to go ahead and, lease to Rio Nuevo during construction, with the ultimate sale then to the end user of the property.
Administrator.
And if I may just to comment as well, when we look at what properties of which we would like to divest ourselves, it will delineate it in the plan, but it's important for us to get an idea if we're on the same track, because when we do certificates of participation or any of our financial work, we free up the property that we think we won't be owning, so that it's not part of our collateral pool. And so we've been looking to moving to take 97 East Congress or 32 North Stone and properties such as that out of the collateral pool and moving in other opportunities. So we want to just make sure we're on the same page. So when we get back to you. Thank you.
I had a question specific to this building. If the part of the plan is for county administration to join the board moving back to 130 West Congress, I think the board and the community as a whole is going to have a lot of interest in what would be the uses for the historic courthouse. Is that something that you can preview at this point, or is that still under discussion?
If I may, Chair, Mr. Lawrence will chime in. One of the reasons that the county administration offices are here is we couldn't lease this space. Initially, there's about 4,400 square feet that were left that nobody wanted. We have reason to believe that that's not the case any longer. And so part of what we've looked at is what makes sense with the other organizations within the courthouse. We have the Gem and Mineral Museum, we've got Visit Tucson, we have attractions and tourism. Are there other attractions and tourism related entities? We were dealing with other park services in the past. The Ford Museum was here. There are others that I think it'll be interesting. Initially, we were looking, is there an RFP process, RFI? How do we complement the other users within the organization? Make sure that we remain loyal to the concept of the building.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else from board members? All right.
Oh, Chair,
I'm sorry.
just because I didn't say it, but just to make the implicit explicit, I think it sounds like a great idea. Reducing our footprint, consolidating, increasing efficiency, I think are just all good moves for us to be making, and then turning some buildings, putting them out on the market. That sounds great.
Thank you.
I am curious, Chair Scott, one thing that we've always been trying to figure out is how we can support small businesses as well. And I'm just dreaming, since this is a discussion, right? I love the conference idea, because it sounds to me like that the conference center is going to be really important as we're reducing footprint. So they're going to need that large space, right? We also have this space that is currently really only county administration, right? And so I hear you, but I'm also more excited about like a collaborative workspace that people can still lease from us, right? A small business, if you've ever been to these collaborative learning spaces, right? That's pretty much the private sector has. I mean, let's dream big about how we can support key targets and areas here. If we were to have suddenly 30 offices that can be rented by small businesses and can support workforce and all of that, I'm much more inclined to do that than to look within and say with some more conference room spaces, if we already have them. But your folks might tell us we don't have any conference space, so we'll have to get there. But
you know, Supervisor Kano is reminding me of the enthusiasm that I have heard Mr. Vescovi-Chiordi express with regard to incubator spaces.
And Chair Scott, I was going to comment, if we met with the one building that we continue to own is the Roy Place building, the old Walgreens, for some of us, and that has, I don't think, seen its highest and best use yet, and that collaborative space for small business incubators, economic development opportunities, collaboratively with all of our partners, it is uniquely positioned for that. And then as we began to look at the downtown area, as you commented in our conversations, I know the city of Tucson, or it's my understanding, has identified an individual who will be on point on the library. But we keep looking at the opportunity to develop a Valdez Center at Hakumi Plaza, at a couple of stories of buildings that may be high and multi-use and retail and workforce housing and all of it together in a way that still keeps open space in the downtown area. So I think there's some incredible opportunities in front of us now, public-private, great opportunities for collaboration with our friends at the city of Tucson.
Mr. Vescovi-Chiordi has better hair than I, Chair Scott.
He just piles it up higher. Thank you, Mr. DeBonis. All right. I think that takes care of item number 10. So now we're on item number 11, board discussion on prioritization. I believe this is when I turn it back over to Ms. Cole and Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Chair Scott. So we're going to go through, let me just take this slide once. We're going to go through and prioritize the priorities that you previously gave us. So there was some magic that happened over lunch, and we have those available to go. We're going to start on that right now. I would like to point out we're a little bit later than we anticipated starting. Is there an issue with going beyond the agenda time?
Chair Scott, I just have to let you know I have to leave at 2:15.
Okay. So if we could have a hard stop at 2:15, if that works with you and Mr. Collins.
That does. And then Administrator Lesher already pointed out some staff.
And Supervisor Allen, Supervisor Hines, is that okay with both of you? All right.
All right. We will be as efficient as we can.
Okay, so for the sake of time, this is the matrix that's borrowed from the matrix, Eisenhower matrix, and strategic planning. We won't go through it for the sake of time, but in a subsequent meeting where the staff will be meeting with each supervisor, we'll have some detail and walk through the application of this matrix so that we can give you some more detailed information. Basically, in the Reader's Digest version, we start at the bottom, employee benefits, and it addresses resources, the operational benefits, and we discuss the tactics that will be used to implement all of the priorities. The public benefit. So when we identify at the prioritization level, what are the priorities? We're going to address what's the public benefit if we implement that priority, and then the financial benefits and challenges for that item. So for the next slide, we have identified in a Reader's Digest condensed version all of the priorities that you've identified. So now we come to this part of the exercise when we say, okay, for this item, is it year 1, is it year 2, and is it year 3? So after we place this, we're going to have some dialogue about it. And you all will tell us, based upon your discussions amongst yourself, what year should this be in? And this is the key part of the exercise. Now remember, this is not a commitment to vote upon where it will be placed in the future. This is just a commitment that, yeah, we tend to think it should be in year one. And we're going to get consensus on that. And later on, we're going to come back, staff is going to do some homework, because in the subsequent slide for this exercise, we're going to be speaking about the level of effort to implement this. Right now, we don't have the information to actually tell you what the level of effort is. That will be done in the homework for the staff to bring back to this board to provide you the information. And that will help inform your decision upon year one, year two, year three, when you actually vote for it. We don't want you to vote for it today without the level of effort that's needed to implement and accomplish that task and priority.
Do you have a question?
I do. So is it that we would start, so I'm thinking about year 1, 2, or 3, is it when we would start, or when do we think it would end, or?
So this is what year you would like to start.
Okay.
Is this a year one priority, a year two? Because everything cannot be year one. So use RTA model to address homelessness and affordable housing. Is that year 1, 2, or year 3?
1.
Now we're going to discuss this, and unfortunately we do have the hard stop, so originally you had more time allocated for it, but yes. Review financial policies, i.e. bonds for long-term funding. I know, it's starting to look like a year 1.
1. Exactly. What else are you going to do?
Use class and comp for appropriate staffing levels and to right-size departments.
I honestly think that is something that is on, as the person who suggested that, I think that's something that's ongoing, and it would come up each year. Are we able to use that as an option? I know you don't have that many placards, but...
Well, in this analysis is when do we start?
Okay.
When do we start?
All right, so...
Now, and let's use that as an example in the Prosperity Initiative. It may start in year 1, but that may be a 15-year initiative.
Understood.
Transition to priority-based budgeting.
I'd say the same thing.
Okay. Use PI to aggressively reduce poverty, increase wages, and generational wealth. We're running out of space in year 1. Expand our environmental stewardship. Yes, was that a question?
No, it's just me continually saying 1.
Recently increased employment levels and opportunities for internships. Regionally increased employment levels and opportunities for internships. Is that a 1 or a 2?
But I think we should turn the whiteboard the other way so that we have more space for 1.
We can do that. Don't worry. It's still 1.
Design infrastructure to support growth in Pima County within our vision.
I'm finding it, and I think everybody's feeling the same way. I'm finding it difficult to place anything beyond year 1. Not only because of the fact that these are all high priorities, but because they may take more than 1 year. So I'm wondering if the model that we came up with is a little constrained.
Is there potential for putting some in year 2, but we're doing setup in year 1, right? That the activities may be a little bit further out, but there are some activities, for example, the RTA model. That may take, will that take legislation? Would that take other things that maybe would make it difficult to do in year 1?
But
Not
it
to start.
but it may align with the recommendations that we're going to be getting in the fall from the Regional Affordable Housing Commission.
So just to, those are great observations. The question will be, with staff resources, will we be able to implement in year 1 20 initiatives successfully?
I think what staff would need to do is let us know what can be started right away and what needs more staff and maybe even outside consulting input. But it seems like the discussion of everything would start in year 1. That's why I'm wondering if this model is again a little constraining. Head on, Bruce.
Chair Scott, I concur, and I feel like there are themes that the board has identified today in public forum as part of this retreat, right? And so I do think that we should allow staff to hear what those are and then see what is in alignment with their calendar. Like I was almost thinking if we were going to use this model, these overarching things that last in perpetuity, environmental conservation is that I was thinking of a bottom list of court names or high top list of court names, and then once we go through all of the action items, I think then we can determine kind of where we need to go. I think for clarity's purposes, just to workshop it, the shift to priority-based budgeting, I think we can agree that that's year 1, right? And I think that's a huge shift. And that's going to take a lot of work. And departments and role officers will be knocking on our doors pretty soon as a result of that. So I've almost wanted to figure out what are the core themes related to that budget priorities that will funnel into it. That makes sense.
It does, and without them explaining the flip side of the board, but just taking from it what I'm assuming. I think what you're suggesting, Supervisor Cano, they're about to get into. Yes.
So excellent lead. Thank you for passing the baton. So if you look at the chart, this is the chart that's on the screen. And so what you're alluding to is the impact and the level of effort. So when we speak about project-based budgeting and some of the other items, we can then take these items and place them within this matrix and framework that will help guide what should we focus on first and refine the priorities. So when we look at the impact, because not everything has the same impact. Supervisor Allen mentioned earlier, how do we take all of the resources and apply it to a specific project to address that item, whether it's a community, an area, or a project, so that we can start accomplishing some items instead of spreading our resources so far that the impact is de minimis. So this is what you're alluding to as part of the matrix, and it was actually step 2. Are we comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. I was starting to get worried. We got 16 items. So let's pivot.
Well, just to follow up on the points that Supervisor Cano was just making, it seems pretty apparent that making a shift to priority-based budgeting would be high impact and high effort.
Do you want to just go here, or do you want to do high and low impact first and then discuss efforts? Because our intention was to go high and low.
and then on efforts?
Well, I'm speaking just to that one. I think its impact is apparent, but the fact that it would take a tremendous organizational shift is apparent. So that's why I think it's double H.
Can I would suggest that high impact, high effort, that the effort, so my thought on transition priority-based budgeting is that it's a little less on the effort because I can think of other things that are not only just getting our organization and the county aligned, but getting other municipalities aligned. Mm-hmm. So that seems to me like those things are going to fall in that category of high effort. And then while I don't disagree that it's going to be a lot of work, but I think that there's other things that might be even more work in terms of getting other systems also aligned and organizations aligned. So maybe we could push that down to a little bit lower effort.
So can we go back to maybe high and low and then look at effort? Because
so you're talking about discussing impact first?
Impact first.
Okay.
And then effort, because at that point we can also get some other people maybe to help with effort.
Okay, sure.
We're protecting. Increased communication to share our impact, our services, our work. I would say in yellow. High impact.
Still high impact. Turn my thing on. Hopefully that works. Give class and comp for appropriate staffing levels and to right-size departments.
I think it's still high impact. And it came after the other one for me because I see them as connected.
At some point, everything can't be the same priority level. So I'm just going to mention that and lay that on the table for you.
Doggone it.
Yeah. Work with nonprofits and agencies in a changing grant funding landscape. This is the collaboration and working with nonprofits and other agencies. You said higher than that. You said word.
That's like high medium. Where do I have to work?
I mean, is it helpful to think about the concentric circles around impact, and that there are, and whether it is impact around the number of people, right? There's our organization, there is kind of the metropolitan area, there is the county overall with all the other municipalities, thinking about rural areas, right? There are different levels of people being impacted, if that helps us think differently about high versus low.
Yes, they're all important.
Yes.
They're all important, but it's the level of impact.
Are we able to see them all?
You have in front of you a list of them all.
And to that point, when we were asked as 4 supervisors to come up with this, you asked us to come up with our 3 top priorities. So that just comes with the assumption that for all of us, we consider these to be high impact. So again, I don't know if this particular model is going to help with the sorting that you're wanting to do, because I think all of us would see everything on our list as high impact, or we wouldn't have listed it as a top priority.
That's correct. The only additional item that I would add, yes, we're acknowledging that it's high impact. But when we look at the level of effort, that's an additional consideration.
It is, but I don't think my point is I don't think anyone's going to have a low impact. If there's a low impact, they listed it as a top priority.
And I have 8 priorities. 3.
Exactly. Yeah.
Supervisor, is this basically where we are? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we can put these here. I would take it down. Now we have to discuss the effort. Is the effort, the impact, is the impact high or low? To Supervisor Allen's point, when we look at the resources for that initiative, how many people do we impact compared to another initiative that we have or priority? The number of people that are impacted may not be the same because we have different segments. So when we start considering the segmentation of any of the initiatives and who they impact, the segmentation is important. We know the population that will be impacted by them. If we are collaborating with the University of Arizona and other stakeholders, we could note the number of citizens in Pima County that will be impacted by the Prosperity Initiative. We know that number. But in other cases, that number may not be as great. We know the number of citizens that will be impacted by affordable housing. We know that number. In other initiatives, it may be a different number, so the impact may be different. So when we speak about affordable housing, we're talking about a generational issue. It's not just a fix this one family or assist this one family. It's a transformative initiative that impacts generations. So that's a multiplier. So in this exercise, we really need to identify, at least at this point, high impact, level of effort. Now again, if we were to skip to the next section, you've answered the question, what are the priorities? Then staff will come back to a point that's made earlier and tell you what are the resources that are needed to actually implement this. So we will have that resources. That was a question or statement you asked. We don't know the resources. That should be something staff will do, and that's something we planned on doing and coming back with and providing the board the information on the resources it will take to actually implement this successfully.
Chair Scott, I think there's overlap with my items from 4 to 8 for us to take them out and to then be able to have 3 from each. But I'm going back to your point that I feel like this structure just still might not be in this process the way we've got to figure it out. Like when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at priority-based budgeting being the top. And that's more, I'm thinking more external as a county jurisdiction for that particular item, to where I feel like class and comp and vacancy and all of that other kind of stuff is still like, I'm not going to pit that funding with our employees, right? So I just feel a little conflicted because I feel like we're in a little binary choice right now.
And the reason I have those two paired is because I saw them as not only, I saw the first one as identifying needs and potential resources, and I saw the second one because of the significance of personnel costs freeing up resources.
And they're both super important, right? And
right.
And really, like, what would probably be more helpful to county administration is just to get a temperature check of where perhaps these list of items, like there is alignment right now that you see, like you need more clarity, right? I find that process more helpful than going through this. Because if what you need to get out of today's retreat is, should we start looking, for instance, item number 3, Chair Scott, on yours, consider bonding for long-term funding, right? I mean, if this is the forum to indicate that we should use staff resources to be able to get us towards that vision, and I feel like we just need to say it, right, rather than put all of our priorities against one another. Well, not one, against one another.
No, I hear what you're saying, but ranking them against one another.
Yeah.
Great observation. This exercise, to the point, is we're not competing. We're not competing. You may have items that are aligned, and also similar to the Olympic Circle, they're commingled. They're not really separate. So when we speak about using the comp study, when we think about using and addressing right-sizing the staff, those are intermingled. They're not necessarily separate or competing. So we broke them down, but they're not competing. The competition and ranking will occur after we do the analysis on what's required, the resources and the dollars to implement an item. At that point, you're going to make the hard decision based upon the resources, staff, level of effort, and dollars. That's when the ranking is going to occur. And that's when the rubber's really going to meet the road. Here's just getting a consensus.
I think another thing that I'm going to be interested in is what you heard from the board today, at least 4 of the 5 members today, how that aligns with what you, Ms. Lesher, and the DCAs have been hearing from department directors and other people who've been engaged in that part of this, the staff-driven part of the strategic planning process.
Sure, Scott. Clear, and I think that's right. Thank you. It is a lot, Chair Scott, and maybe to go back to part of what you've been chatting about too, Supervisor Kano. If I look at what I've heard today, I bet, because I think what we may have to do is go back and look at having staff do the piece of, we know what's impactful, we know what's important, what's high effort, what's lower effort. How do we align some of that? When we can get things started, when we can get it finished. I keep thinking back to what we've been doing with RTA, which was take all the road projects and put them on 4 quarters, and nobody wanted their road to get fixed.
You mean all of your Wednesdays for the last 2 months?
But I think, and make sure if I'm hearing it right as we go through this, that a key element is staff. That there was a lot of acknowledgement about the importance of the staff. We as the county are only as good as our staff. What are we doing with class comp and making sure that we are focused on all of the efforts and the work to keep the staff. Prosperity Initiative is pretty much what is outlining and designing our budget. There are things that go with that. How do we look at priority-based budget? What is it we need to do? But looking at our 13 policies, if you will, and what or the pillars of the Prosperity Initiative, what is it we need to make sure that we're fully implementing that? And as a piece of that, looking at all of the sustainable environmental issues that we've been looking at, that those are really the big themes that there's some desire for us to look at developing the budget around. It's part of what I was trying to think of next step and just sort of how we do some of this was a lot of focus today on collaboration and direction of collaboration with other jurisdictions within the county, breaking silos within our own organization. I've sometimes talked about it as the one Pima County, and that's one within the county and one within the geographic area that is the county, to see how it is we're working together. And then just in some of the granularity a little bit more, I've heard a lot about communications, and I think a continued desire to suggest that we report on things well. We do good stuff, but we're not telling our story as well as it might be told, and dealing with some of that very affirmative kinds of response to communication and a little more effort on government relations. I think what I've been hearing today is sort of the buckets, what we need to do, how do we focus, and then how do we maybe come back and help try to define what we can do with what kind of effort involved. The guys went to get our bond rating call.
That seems important.
Anywho, that's what I've heard, and I'm just looking at the time as we're beginning to wrap up and want to make sure that the idea and the thing that, as we said at the beginning, that's so helpful is that we need a tool like this to have you help us decide what we're looking at in the budget. When I look at, high effort, low effort, and when we do things, is also coming back to you to say, and we need more money, maybe is it, are we looking at, but we're looking at both expenditures and revenues as we have these conversations. What is it we need to do? And we need to do a lot. And so maybe that's when we also come back to you and talk about bonding, and districts and other things that we need to do in order to implement the vision that you all have to make sure you're serving the constituents of Pima County.
Sure, Scott. What I would say is, well, I'm always grateful for our administrator's vision and ability to have 5 different opinions and be able to explain them all, and here we are. I want to thank both Ms. Cole and Director Collins for really wanting us to head in this direction, and I think we're headed there, even though we might not have outlined that here. I think today has been so critical to be able to ensure that we are speaking not the same language, but that we are aware of each other's language, right? And that we can perhaps understand where we are. Open meeting laws make it very difficult for us to have a conversation like this. And I encourage us to not only make this a practice, but it's a nice way of being able to hash out some really good ideas and see where we can go with all of it. And so I'm grateful for the structure. I'm grateful for the facilitation. And I really just think going back to the existing internal work plan that the strategic plan I referenced earlier, that calendar is also in motion. Now we've just got to figure out what that alignment is now that the board has also applied. Yeah, and it'll be, this process is very healthy, and I'm couldn't be prouder of our team today.
I appreciate you saying that, Supervisor Kano, and agree with all those sentiments, and also appreciated how you framed everything just before his comments, Ms. Lesher. Go ahead, Supervisor Allen.
So
I realize I'm taking this back, and you're supposed to be facilitating. I'm sorry.
So I think what you've done, Cole, in the sorting is actually super helpful, because as I see it right on the bottom, there are the key, I don't know, the issues is not really the right word and doesn't quite do justice, right? But prosperity initiative, education, are, yeah, and addressing the opioid crisis and mental health, access to health services, climate change, that those are all clustered, right? That the complex issues and challenges that we have said are important. And then at the top are some of the hows, right? And some of it is around our budgeting, bonding, our staffing, building up and thinking through the staffing again, partnerships with nonprofits. There's the RTA is a model and infrastructure, right? So those are some of those things are all essential hows for us to effectively tackle the things on the bottom, right? Like, that's the way I see it. So thank you for
Supervisor.
Anything you wanted to throw in, Supervisor?
So I think we have information and feedback to take back, and we understand we listened very attentively to what your concerns were. So as we debrief as a staff with the county administrator and leadership, we have enough information to move forward. One of the items that we will be doing, we will be meeting with each of you to flush out some of these items and concerns so that staff could then use that information in our development of the materials to come back to you and how to move forward and successfully complete this task.
Can I request that you offer that one-on-one meeting also to Supervisor Christie, as he was unable to attend today?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
That was actually my point. Oh, just reach out to District 4 and see what their immediate priorities are. Talk to them.
Thanks. So I want to, on behalf of Nancy, myself, and then County Administrator and the entire team, we want to thank everyone for their active participation. It became very lively and informative. So we want to thank you for your time and participation.
And if you exist out there, anyone who watched all of this, wow. Go ahead.
Huge shout out to Senior Advisor Nancy Cole, who's been doing this for a year or more, and helping us work with all the departments and make sure, as it's been noted, a lot of this is administrative and it's sort of from the bottom up, because she spent a lot of time talking with a lot of people within the county, and to Director Collins, who's been with us for 4 months, and we didn't get you involved in this till at least a weekend when you were here. Amazing work, and for the first time doing it and figuring out the ground rules, it's been an amazing team. So thank you.
Fantastic.
We got a fancy new wife.
We will look for feedback from you too. That would be great.
Do you have something else you wanted to say? No?
Well, I'd like to see a picture at the end of this, but,
Oh, picture. I'm sure we can do that. Anything else from board members?
It's been fun.
Yeah, it has. Oh, I have to do this? All right.